Hello friends who are watching this discernment video today. You will notice that this first part of the video is just me, and that is because in our meeting, I gave a little bit of background and then realized that I failed to record that portion of the meeting. So I just want to recap what I shared in the meeting today. First, welcome and thank you for being in this time together. In our meeting, Reverend Mary Nelson, our transitional conference minister, offered us an opening prayer, which I unfortunately failed to record. And now the reason we are gathered. I want to be clear before we begin our meeting time that there is no motion on the floor or table about MoVal at this time. There has been some misconception that the council voted to close MoVal, and that is not true. This misconception has been allowed to continue and has even been perpetuated, and I find that very disappointing. Honestly, it needs to stop. That said, there are decisions that must be made, and the council wants to hear from the conference in discerning what those should be. So, a bit of background information. In 2019, the conference council was informed that there was a part of the MoVal property that we call Tambo that was not usable and would cost quite a bit to be returned to a usable state. I believe it was also in that year that we found out that there is a sewage lagoon on that piece of the property that is no longer being grandfathered in under EPA policies. And so in the fall of 2019 at our conference annual gathering, there was a motion to sell Tambo brought to the meeting. And that motion was withdrawn after discussion, largely to allow time to hear from neighborhood houses members, or Unleashing Potential, as it is now called, who had primarily used the Tambo property. In conversations with the folks at Unleashing Potential, it was decided that they would have a time to visit the Tambo property to say goodbye. And in the meantime, the council also continued to explore the ways that the income from Tambo could be used in appropriate ways. Then in March of 2020, as we have all dealt with for over a year, the coronavirus pandemic began, and the MoVal programming for the summer of 2020 was suspended. Conference annual gathering in April was moved online. And this motion about Tambo died as it was not brought up again. However, the fact that it was sparked in part by decisions that needed to be made and updates did not go with it. In early summer of 2020, the Conference Council formed a subcommittee to assess MoVal's finances, property, and long-term sustainability. This assessment included, but was not limited to, the Tambo property that was originally under discussion. In summer of 2020, the task force began meeting, and over the next 6 or so months, they studied the finances, property history, and sustainability of the existing outdoor ministry program at MoVal. Sometime in the year 2020, I'm not sure of the date, MoVal's state-issued license to operate expired, and neither the camp office nor the conference office received notification of this expiration. In January of 2021, Jeremy Force announced his resignation from MoVal, and the council held a special meeting in response to this news and determined that there was not enough time to complete a search for a new director before preparations for the summer would need to begin, and uncertainty around the potential timeline of the continuing coronavirus pandemic was also a significant factor under consideration, and the council voted to suspend programming for 2021. In February of 2021, the council subcommittee submitted their report on MoVal to the council with recommendations. And after discussion, the council affirmed the motion that the Missouri Mid-South Conference of the United Church of Christ would enter a time of listening and discerning the future of Camp MoVal with careful consideration to the sale of the property. Following the listening discernment period, a vote will be held at a called meeting of the conference body in the fall of 2021. The council also approved the creation of the outdoors ministry consultant. In March of 2021, the council agreed to contract with Reverend Brandyn Simmons to lead a process of discernment based on the principles of appreciative inquiry. Reverend Simmons is a recognized leader and consultant for the United Church of Christ settings across the country. Then in late April or early May, the Environmental Protection Agency notified Bill Borden, the outdoor ministry consultant, that the camp's license to operate had expired and that the sewage lagoon on the property is out of compliance with state environmental regulations. The lagoon must be brought into compliance before the license to operate can be granted again by the state. Bill has begun the process of seeking estimates and engaging a contractor to do the repairs to bring MoVal into compliance. And Bill estimates that the permitting process will take about a year and the construction costs will be about $15,000. These timing and cost projections are at this time an estimate. No documentation, proposals, or contracts have been shared with the council for their consideration or action. And so now we enter our time of listening and discernment together. Following the completion of this process in September, the council will again take up the question of MoVal's future and sustainability. Taking into consideration the work and results of this discernment process, the task force study the condition and licensure of the property for occupancy, the staffing requirements of the camp, and other possible factors. Currently, it is the intention of the council to make a recommendation for action at a called conference business meeting in fall of 2021. The date for this meeting has not yet been set, but will be announced by the council as soon as it is determined. This meeting today was recorded so that folks in the conference can see what the process will be and hopefully decide to join us. But other meetings will not be made available to watch afterwards, as we feel it is important that folks be in this process together. And so welcome. Welcome to folks who are guests of the conference today. We invite you, as well as the staff of the conference, to participate in this process with a listening role. For those who are members of the conference, if you were not clear about your membership when you registered, you will not be assigned a small group. So if you are a member but need to clarify this, please email me and let me know where your local church membership is. Our small groups will be assigned by June 1st, so please let me know your desire to participate by then. And now to Brandyn Simmons, the Reverend Brandyn Simmons, who will be our coach for this listening and discernment process.
Thanks, Andrea. I appreciate it. Hi, everyone. Glad to be here with you all to take this journey with you in discernment and figuring out what is and are the next best steps for all of you and for MoVal. So just a couple of, we'll call them ground rules as we start out. We want to make sure that this is a safe place for everybody. So we want to make sure that we honor everybody and that everybody has a voice, that we don't talk over anyone. There will be time for questions in the end. So basically, I'm going to go through and explain what appreciative inquiry is, the principles that it's based upon, and then go into what the process is and what our work will look like together. And then after that, folks will have the opportunity to ask questions, and then we'll get our work going. So having said that, I also want to note that everybody involved, everybody who's here will have a role. No matter how big or how small, this discernment process will result in something, right? And so whatever that may be, whatever it is that you all dream up together, you will have a role in making that come to fruition. So having said that, let me share my presentation here. Okay. Give me a thumbs up if you can see that. All right, great. So, all right. So the idea of appreciative inquiry is to, for one, live the questions. figure out what the right questions are, and have those questions shine some light on the narrative. Basically, what we're trying to do is see the story that God has already been doing with all of you, see what that narrative looks like, and then moving forward, take that awareness of what has been working and build on that to create a new story, to co-create with God where you all want to go. So I like this quote from Rilke. Be patient toward all that is unsolved in your heart and try to love the questions themselves, like locked rooms and like books that are now written in a very foreign tongue. Do not now seek the answers, which cannot be given you because you would not be able to live them. And the point is to live everything. Perhaps you will then gradually, without noticing it, live along some distant day into the answer. So a little bit of history of appreciative inquiry to give you an idea of how it's worked in the past. British Airways had a huge problem with losing luggage. And so they brought in some consultants to help them to figure out how to solve the problem. And the first group of consultants came in. They said, what do you want to do? We want to stop losing luggage. Okay, we'll do some fact finding here. We'll collect some data. We'll provide a report for you and move on. And that's what they did. And they sent them a nice fat bill. And lo and behold, after the consultants left, they started losing more luggage. So they said, those consultants, a bunch of yahoos, they must not have known how to do their job. Let's get another group of consultants in here to do the job right. So they go through the same process, and the result was they lost even more luggage. So then they bring in a group of coaches. Now, the difference between consulting and coaching, if you're not aware, is consulting is, okay, I'm going to find the problem and tell you how to fix it. There's not really any buy-in on your part. It's just, here's what you're supposed to do it. Coaches ask powerful questions to bring up and elicit the awareness that you already have the answers, but to help you through those questions, bring it to the forefront of your awareness and to put the pieces together to create a solution. With appreciative inquiry, you're also focused on the positive and building on that versus focusing on the negative to fix, so to speak. So we operate on the idea that we are all whole persons and that we all have gifts and abilities to build a path forward. So they bring in a group of coaches, and this group of coaches included a man named David Cooperrider, who had developed this organization change management methodology called appreciative inquiry. So they come in, they say, so what do you want to do? We want to stop losing luggage. Nah. What do you want to do? We want to stop losing luggage. Nah. Come on. What do you really want to do? They said, well, we want to give our passengers the ultimate travel experience. Let's do that together. And so that's what we're going to do together. We're going to define what it is that we are seeking. And from there, we're going to build upon what's been working. Let's see. There we go. Okay. So the principles, I'm just going to run through these quickly. These are the primary core principles that appreciative inquiry is based on. So first of all is the constructionist principle, understanding that our metaphors and our language make our reality. Okay. So this is the idea that whatever language we use, our nomenclature, things like that, that is our reality and the lens through which we see things. So as we tell stories and we use certain words and metaphors and whatnot, we are building a reality for ourselves. But for somebody else, that may not be a reality, right? The positive principle says that positive inquiry leads to positive emotions, beliefs, behaviors, and outcomes. So that means that if we come in and say, what's wrong? Why aren't you doing this right? Where are these problems coming from? Imagine being in a work situation where your boss comes in and says, so what's up with those numbers? You said you were going to hit 15 million last month and it's It's not happening. What are we going to do about this? Right? Your amygdala is going to activate. You're going to get your hackles up, and you're not going to like the conversation very much. But if somebody says, you know what? Here's a magic wand. You can dream up whatever you want to. The sky is the limit. What are we going to do together? That works on the prefrontal cortex and even causes a secretion of endorphins, and you feel good about it. So then the simultaneity principle says asking or thinking about a question elicits change in the moment that it is considered. So if somebody asks you a question, or even if you ask yourself a question, there is an automatic shift in mindset that occurs. It may be very, very small, but all you have to do is ask a question to create that shift for yourself or others. The poetic principle sees the self or organization as a story that is constantly being written. It's an open book. So we don't have this fatalistic mentality that, well, whatever happens, happens. It's out of our control, because that's simply not the truth. You are all the writers of your story, and you have the power and the capability to write that story and to co-create that story with God moving forward. And then finally, the anticipatory principle says that our image and beliefs of the future guide our actions in the present. So if we believe that things just ain't going to go right in the future, then we're going to act accordingly now and say, well, it's nothing I can do, and you're not going to do anything. And then you create this self-fulfilling prophecy. On the opposite end, if you have hope and you believe that something great can come out of this, then you will act and work accordingly and get that type of a result. All right, so here's the appreciative inquiry process. First, we start with a definition. Like I said, we want to define an appreciative topic, right? Then, after that stage is over, we move on to the discovery stage. That means we are looking for the narrative. We're looking to see what has been happening. And with questions like, where have you been the most excited to be a part of this conference? Or when have you most enjoyed being at MoVal? Or things like that. We want those kind of positive questions to help us elicit these stories. Then, after you discover what the stories are, you want to dream a new reality. How do we take what we know now and build upon it to co-create our future? So that's the dream stage. Then we move into the design stage. And that means, okay, we take the dreams that we have found and that we have discovered, and then we're going to engineer those. We're going to draw up some blueprints, so to speak, and figure out how to make this thing happen. And then finally, in the delivery/destiny phase, you want to actually implement the thing that you have created and make it a reality. Then I'll explain in a bit what this all will look like for us. Let's see, we're gonna keep going. So basically, what we're wanting to do is we're gonna form small groups, as Andrea mentioned, and these small groups are going to have these questions to discuss, to wrestle with, to bring about some awareness for themselves, and share those stories with one another so that everybody is aware of what types of stories and what types of ideas there are. From that stage, we are going to go into what's called the discovery process. So we're discussing, where has God been at work? Then we're going to dream, and that is to decide, okay, how are we going to co-create this future? How are we going to possibly move forward? What are the best next steps? And then we're going to have a summit. And this summit basically means that everybody brings their ideas from their small groups, the top ideas of, hey, I think we can do this. Not only we should, right? There's no Monday morning quarterbacks that are saying, I think we should do this, and I'm not going to be involved. If you have an idea, you're going to be part of the process. So we bring those ideas forward at the summit, and then folks will vote and decide which ideas are the best. Then we'll take those, say, top 3 ideas, for example, and we'll have a team that will go and figure out all of the information in terms of people hours, financial cost, opportunity cost, all of the things that will be required to make these things a reality. Then we'll go into the design phase, and we'll start to put some skin on these ideas while that proposal team does their fact finding. Afterward, we'll come back into another summit where we will learn about all of the data that's been collected, and from there vote on which idea seems the most feasible. Doesn't mean that the other two are out, but they just go in the parking lot for now. They may be ideas that whose time will come. So that primary idea then is engaged and an implementation team is formed. And at that stage, that implementation team will then do the main work of bringing that idea to fruition. However, again, everybody will be involved. For example, it could be something as simple as, oh, my nephew is a general contractor. I can give him a call and ask him about how to pull these permits for whatever. Okay, great. You've got some skin in the game. You've done something. Let's see, let me keep going here. All right, so those are the summits. And then let me get the principles. Okay, so we want to remember we're dreaming. We're not setting goals. You might say, well, aren't they the same thing? Yes, technically, but language matters. Think about New Year's resolutions, right? When you set a goal, like, oh, I'm going to go to the gym every day, I'm going to lose X amount of pounds, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And then by January 20th, you're hitting your head against the wall again because you're like, huh, another year and no results because I didn't follow through. Goals just have a negative connotation for us. But dreams activate what we call the positive emotional attractors. So that means, again, we're operating here in the prefrontal cortex using logic and dreaming up new ideas. Goals tend to activate the negative emotional attractors, so the amygdala. Dreams result in heightened imagination. Goals result in tunnel vision. So when your amygdala is activated and you're in fight or flight response, you actually get tunnel vision and cannot see all of the possibilities that are right there around you. You're kind of stuck in place. And it's just this repetitive process and cycle. So dream and then reverse engineer, right? So you find a dream and then you build a plan on how to get there, kind of build that road, and then go along through all of these stages. Let me admit, I don't know if I can see. All right. And I think that's it. Okay, so that is what the process looks like. Let me admit Laura. Okay, so what questions do you all have? I want to open it up, and again, we want to honor time. So if there are 75 people with 75 questions, that might not be feasible. But and right now, we're not talking about feasibility, right? We're not talking about, well, I think this is a good idea or not a good idea, things like that. Just these are all just for clarifying questions that you all might have about how this process will work together. Okay, Andrew.
Yeah, so you were mentioning the summits and making votes on kind of which ideas we'd move forward with. I'm wondering how we envision that fitting into the process of the vote that will be held in the fall with the whole conference, how those summits will mesh with a wider conference vote.
So I'm going to go to Andrea real quick about the conference vote.
Yeah, those summits will help the council to see what the hopes of this group and the conference are, and will help us to discern what to bring to that vote. And I can't answer right now if it will be just the top idea or the top two ideas. I don't know what might come from this time. So I don't want to falsely predict what that conclusion will be. Does that answer your question, Andrew?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, the sky is the limit. Who knows what's going to come out of this? And so, like Andrea said, I would be remiss to say, well, you all might decide to do this or do that, because I don't know. I don't know what you're going to decide. All right. Who else has any questions?
Under reactions.
I can't see everyone on my screen, so if you just want to raise your hand with the Zoom function, or just go ahead and unmute yourself and ask away. Yeah, Bill.
Okay, two questions. Number one, the results that are going to come out of this process, are they going to be published so that the conference can see the total of what we have decided, or will they only go to the conference council? And when you said somewhere along the way there's an implementation team,
Yes.
what happened? And who would decide, or how would it be decided who will be on that implementation team?
Okay, great questions. So the first question, and Andrea can correct me if I'm wrong, I'm assuming this will be public. I mean, once everything is finalized, everybody will know. We'll have complete transparency and release that to everybody. Not necessarily, during the process, we won't necessarily be giving updates and saying, hey, here's what's happening right now in the delivery stage or in the dream stage. The other question is, it'll be volunteer based. We'll start there because let's think of our churches, for example. We have people on our councils and boards and vestries and all those things that have been on there for many, many years and are burned out. And sometimes you have people where we just want a warm body in a seat, right? Hey, we need somebody to lead this ministry. Who wants to do it, or who wants to be on this board? And then, okay, fine. What we want in this process is a lot of intentionality. So we want the people with the right skills, the right passion, and all of that to be able to, fill those spots to be on that implementation team. Can the slides be emailed? Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
You bet, you bet.
Hi, this is Carolyn. Do you mind if I interject a question here?
Please do.
Hi, sorry, I'm from St. John Church in St. Charles. So just a quick question, and Andrew, you can let me know if this is really not the time for it, but these meetings and the dates are all been set, it looks like, on Saturdays during the summer when people are going to be gone. And not only are they set up on Saturdays, they're set up at 1 p.m., which is right in the middle of your afternoon. I realize the times haven't been set for the other ones, but I think to get the most people, because obviously this is really important to everyone, otherwise you wouldn't have this many on the call. However, Saturdays during the summer are going to be very difficult for a lot of people if they're traveling, because everything else is open now. So, people are going to be starting to take vacations. Could we at a minimum start these early in the morning versus right in the middle of the afternoon?
Yeah, so the goal is after this one for them to be in the morning.
Okay.
We just had multiple meetings scheduled on the same day today for the conference. And so some of us, like myself, were in another conference meeting this morning and now are in this one. But yes, the rest of them we hope will be in the mornings.
Okay, thank you.
And then Carol had the question. Oh, okay, I see. Yes, Carol, they can be emailed. I teach coaching at a number of schools, so these slides I use for my instructional purposes. So, yep.
I will also say we will share the final result and update in the e-courier. And I believe that this past week's e-courier also said the rest of the meetings would be in the morning. So I highly, highly encourage you to read your e-courier. I always encourage you to read your e-courier, but it's especially important during all of the different processes that we have going on right now.
You're right. You're correct, Andrea. The e-courier said the rest of the meetings would be in the morning.
Okay. And Bill has his hand up.
Yeah, this is Bill Biedenstein. I serve on the conference council. It's not important, but I guess I want to echo what Andrew and maybe others have said and maybe add to it. My concern is that I think folks that have signed up for this process are definitely interested in Camp MoVal. I am, and I think a lot of folks here have joined because of that concern about the future. My concern is that the decision makers may not be in this group. I mean, those of us that participate in this process, and those that do not, you know, I think a lot of people that are involved in the decision-making process, as far as the conference is concerned, may not be participating in this. So how do they fit in? How do we mesh these experiences together toward a productive session?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm going to answer that in two ways, and you tell me if I'm speaking to your question. The first way is after this session, since this particular session will be available, the recording will be, people can still join in. So if there are people that need to have a voice in this discussion, then there will be a place for them to join in, but not afterward, right? We want to get them in the beginning of the process. The other answer to that is those who are in positions of leadership, who have decision-making power, we're intentional about not having them as part of this discussion per se, because we want the people, so to speak, to make the decision. However, they will be informed along the way, and because we want, as impossible as it is, to have as little bias as possible in this process. So did I answer your question, Bill?
More or less.
Okay. Okay.
Some of this you have to live into it in order to fully appreciate it. So,
Yes,
yeah.
sir. Yep, you speak truth. All right, let's see what's happening in the chat here. Will we need to register again for upcoming? Okay, so I'll ask Andrea about that process.
Yes,
Oh, we
and
good
I
right there.
responded, we
Yep.
will need to register for
Okay.
upcoming.
Okay. All right. And Lindsay.
On that, actually, I raised my hand right before that was asked. Is there a way to make it actually state you need to register, or a little more clear? Because there were many, it was very poorly explained how that process was going to work. So people who aren't familiar probably need a little more. We wouldn't have known.
Yeah, I'll admit that was partly my fault. So it was in the e-courier for 2 weeks. And the first week it did not say to register because I just had it in there wrong. And the second week it did say to register. So that's my fault. I just didn't have it set up right the first time. But for the rest of the meetings, I now know what I'm doing. Also my first time using the registration option on Zoom. So now I know what that looks like, and I will get that right for the rest of them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for being patient and learning with me.
Yeah, there will be economies of scale, right? There will be learning moments throughout this process. And hopefully the nice thing is by the end, not only will we come out with some great outcomes and ideas, but we'll also all be more learned about technology and communication and how to do it with clarity and transparency and using technology to do that. So that can only benefit everybody.
I wonder if I could ask a question.
Mm-hmm.
My name's Bob Brennicky. Am I being heard by anybody?
Yes,
Yep.
Bob, go ahead.
Okay, good. I had a hard time getting on the computer after I found out that you were going to have a meeting, so I'm very sorry I came in late. I'd like to address the being able to find out when you're having the meetings. I have started with our church trying to get the information to them. And is it possible that I could send you an email that you could send me information without looking through papers or emails to try to find out when we're going to have this, or is that possible at all?
So are you asking if you can use a certain email address to receive information too, or just?
I would like to hear. Pardon me. I would like to get information on email that you're having a meeting instead of going through the conference information.
Okay. Okay.
So
That-
we will likely communicate that within the small groups. So you should hear about it if you are involved in a small group that will be made after this meeting. So we should have contact information for everyone from the registration form that you filled out. That being said, I would really like to encourage you to read the e-courier. So please read the e-courier to find that information.
Do what to it? I'm
Read
having a hard
the
time with
email
this.
that
I'm
the
sorry.
conference sends out.
There's an email called the e-courier that goes out from the conference with specific information. So if you're on that email list, then you will be able to receive it through that. All right, and then I see Robert Atkinson asking, meetings, who are these people other than the members of the, so what I was talking about was people who are in positions of leadership at, whether they work directly at MoVal or, you know, hold some sort of a title in the conference. So we don't want them to make the ultimate decisions. Certainly they can be a part of the process in terms of providing data. So if we need to know at some point, we will, you know, for example, where are we at in cash flow or revenues, or how many people did we get 2 years ago, or et cetera, et cetera. They'll certainly be filling us in on that information. However, we don't want them to make the decision because it's very difficult for them not to have a bias. I mean, for one, this is their job. And we want the people to feel that they have been heard, and we're able to, we'll say, make that in a decision in a manner that holds to our UCC polity.
Andrew has his hand up again.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd just like to clarify a little on what you were just saying about, so I'm a part of the MoVal Covenanted Ministry team, which is a volunteer group of leadership for the camp.
Mm-hmm.
Do I need to be stepping back from this process in any degree, or is that not that level that you're looking to exclude?
Yeah, no, you don't have to recuse yourself at all. We're talking about people in paid leadership specifically.
Awesome, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else?
I have a question. Let me get my video back on. So originally I didn't sign up because I already have funerals and weddings planned, and when these dates came out, a lot of the dates don't match up for me. So if I do join a group, am I still going to be able to do that? Because Saturday mornings on a lot of these, I'm not available.
The primary importance lies on the small groups. So as long as you're able to make your small groups, if there are times when you can't make it to a summit or one of these sessions, it's not as important as doing that work in the small groups.
So the small groups are meeting at different time, other than the Saturday. I understand. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I want to address that because that's a number of people have mentioned it. It was very difficult and is and always will be, right, to find a time or times that work for everybody. And unfortunately, that will come up and clash with other folks' schedules or vacation schedules or daily schedules or whatever the case may be. So I do want to acknowledge that and apologize for that reality that it's really hard and impossible to set times that work for everyone. Did MoVal apply for additional funding from the stimulus program?
MoVal falls under the conference's stimulus monies that they received. So yes, they did receive, let me get the letters right, PPP funding under the heading of the conference.
Okay, and if you'll all take note of what Mary put in the chat, and that'll help you all to understand who's involved in the process and who is intentionally not. Are the small groups I'm referring to, oops, it moved. Yes, these are different. These are different. These are groups that are going to be formed specifically out of this group of folks. Yeah, can we do a doodle poll? Yes. So the dates, part of that process also is, with both my client schedule, who's already booked at certain times for me to be working with, and also I'm on sabbatical, so from my church, so I'm doing a lot of traveling as well. So part of it was on me, and part of it was just a matter of discussion and saying, okay, these dates work. So while there may be some wiggle room to change some dates, there's not a lot of wiggle room, because again, as soon as we change a date, somebody else is going to say, wait a minute, I was supposed to be gone on that date. You can't change it. So
there's also a question about the small groups. Yes, these small groups are different from the small groups that the Covenanted Ministry has formed. You will be randomly assigned to small groups, and either myself or the conference office will send you your small group assignments.
Right.
Tom, I see your question about how much money the conference received and how much of that went to MoVal. I don't have that data in front of me today, but when we get to the statistics part of the conversation, that will be included.
Yeah, there will be a time for that, and we'll want every bit of information that we can have, so everybody is making informed decisions. All right. Anybody
Bill
else?
Brinkhorst has his hand up.
Oh, okay. Yes, Bill.
Okay, I'm looking at something that Mary Nelson put in here, and it said that the conference council will listen and make recommendations to the fall meeting of the conference. Will the results of the discernment process, like let's say there are 3 or 4 choices that come out of the discernment process, will those also be made available to the conference as a group?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bet. Anybody else?
Hi, this is Kathy. I had asked in the chat how this recording was going to be dispersed to the group or to the conference and have it available to others that aren't attending today's meeting.
That is a great question. I don't want to speak out of turn, but I would think we can it'll be on the Missouri Mid-South YouTube site, and we can share that link in the e-courier.
Okay.
And there are a few folks who have specifically emailed me. This past week's e-courier invited folks to email me if they knew they wanted to be a part of this process but couldn't make it today. So if folks know that they want to be part of the process, or you know of folks who want to be a part of the process but couldn't be here today, please encourage them to reach out to me, and I'll make sure that they are brought into the loop and assigned a small group.
All right.
I have a question.
Yes.
Can you reiterate the licensing procedure for the camp, and when that's going to take place, and how long do we have to wait before that can be accomplished?
Yeah, so I can address that as much as I'm able. We have not gotten, as far as I'm aware, any bids in writing of the work that needs to be done. So I don't have an answer to that. It will depend on how long it takes to get those permits, and even how much it's going to cost if we have the money readily available to do the work that needs to be done. It looks like Mary's ready to answer also.
Let me jump in here, and I want to make sure folks know I'm in an airport, so I've got my video turned off to preserve my Wi-Fi connection, but I am here and listening to this all. We do not yet have clear information about how long that process is going to take or how much it's going to cost to remediate the sewage lagoon. What we have is a guesstimate from Bill Borden, our outdoor ministries coordinator, who is actively working to get more information, to find contractors, to follow the process. He estimates that it will be approximately a year for the permitting process to be completed. But that is not something we have control over. That is a series of state offices that have to send somebody out and check the site and tell us what to do and check the work as it's continuing, et cetera, et cetera. So we don't have any control over that timeline. Bill's guess is that it will be a year, and his guess about a cost estimate is that it will be approximately $15,000. It could be more, it could be less. We don't know. We do not have information in writing yet. Bill, we just found out about this problem with sewage lagoon a couple of weeks ago. Bill is actively working to get the information, but we do not have it yet. Is that clear? Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. I see Andrew's got his hand up.
I ask a lot of questions. You'll figure that out pretty quick. But this one is, how does that lapse of licensing impact the ability for MoVal to host programs offsite, like the MoVal on the Move programming? I guess this is more a question for Andrea, really, but the MoVal on the Move programming that we've been hoping to bring to life.
Yeah, and I don't know the answer to that, but that will be part of our conversation as we see that, the documentation that you all come up with and process that.
I would ask that some more thought outside of this process go into some aspects like that, as some of the programming to keep options open as we go through this process. Keeping MoVal on people's minds, I think, is a more time-sensitive issue that will have to be addressed during this process rather than after it. Brandon, do you think that it's fair to continue promoting MoVal through this process, even without knowing that what its exact future will be?
I believe so. I believe that the possibilities are so unknown that it would be hard to, put them in a tight enough box to take in mind possibilities of exclusion or anything like that. Okay.
Bill's raising his hand again.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, this is Bill Biedenstein. Just a comment, not so much a question. I think the defining the question, the ultimate question that this group is going to address is going to be an interesting process, because from what I'm hearing and the questions that are being asked, I think the communication process is something that many of us are grappling with, in terms of how do we communicate with each other and reach an effective decision that represents the best wishes of all the folks in the conference. So I'm just interested in helping to define the question, and it may involve more than just MoVal.
Okay, thank you. Bill?
I would urge the conference council to seriously consider beginning the permit process as soon as possible, and to go ahead and find the best contractors to work on the lagoon. Because if we wait until the fall to do any of this, we will lose another summer. If we start fairly soon, we would do it. And if we keep MoVal, we'll need to do it anyway. And if we sell MoVal, we'll get plenty of money. That amount of money.
Bill, let me clarify.
Sure.
The process to get that information and to get that work started is underway. The questions about permitting, about remediation of the sewage lagoon, all of that is separate from what we are doing here today, which is discernment about the future of MoVal. The work that has to be done in order to bring the property back into operational permitting is underway. It's going to take a year for the bureaucracy of the state to do what it needs to do approximately, but we are already beginning that process. That is separate from the discernment work that we are doing together with Brandyn here.
I understand that, Mary, and I understand the timing. I did not bring up the discernment process to begin, or the process of the permitting to begin with. And so this isn't something that I've started.
Bill. Okay, Bob. So those are the small groups are going to be created. What's the word I want to use here? We'll say randomly, but kind of not. We're going to use a random process to keep it fair who is in the group, but we also want a great amount of diversity in terms of ideas and strengths and things like that. So we'll also keep that in mind as well. So you don't have to worry about joining a group so much as just finding out which group you've been assigned to. All right.
And if someone wants to express that they'd like to be a part of the small group, they can message me.
All right, maybe one more question if anybody has one.
I have a question, Bob Brennicky. Recap the answer or the question that I had before with the small groups. You said that individuals will be chosen by their diversity, and how do you choose someone if you've never met them or you don't know what they've gone through, or if they've been at MoVal and they know where it is, or mechanical or electrical or whatever process? How would you choose someone if you don't know that background?
Right, good question. So for the most part, we'll say 99.9%, it'll be a random process. For example, we may have all the names in an Excel spreadsheet, pop in a formula, and then we'll get X amount of groups of 8 people.
That makes more sense.
Yeah.
Will those groups be disseminated to the entire group that's forming the small groups, so that we can find out who else is in our small group to begin to communicate with each other?
Yes. Everybody will receive names and contact information so that you can begin coordinating meeting times. What we're going to have is, what are called small group shepherds. So these are, in essence, the leaders or coordinators of the group. And so when I say leader, I don't mean they speak for the group, but they're the person who's going to coordinate setting up the meeting, hosting the Zoom meeting, sending out information, things like that.
And I will just say, if you're in this meeting today, I'm going to assume you want to be in a small group unless you tell me otherwise. I'm mostly expressing that if you know of folks who aren't in this meeting, who want to be part of the process, tell them they need to reach out to me to be assigned to a small group.
Okay. Great questions, everyone. Thank you. So I want to be mindful of our time. I've got as a benediction, we'll say, something I want to share with you is we keep in mind that this is a process, and it's very easy to want to rush ahead and have the answers right now. And it can't happen that way, right? We have to be committed to the process and taking our time and asking the right questions and allowing God to do God's work in us and among us and around us, and to take the time to have the awareness to see what's happening. So this is a prayer from Pierre Teilhard de Chardin called Patient Trust. Above all, trust in the slow work of God. We are quite naturally impatient in everything to reach the end without delay. We should like to skip the intermediate stages. We are impatient of being on the way to something unknown, something new. And yet it is the law of all progress that it is made by passing through some stages of instability, and that it may take a very long time. And so I think it is with you. Your ideas mature gradually. Let them grow. Let them shape themselves without undue haste. Don't try to force them on as though you could be today what time, that is to say, grace and circumstances acting on your own goodwill, will make of you tomorrow. Only God could say what this new spirit gradually forming within you will be. Give God the benefit of believing that God's hand is leading you and accept the anxiety of feeling yourself in suspense and incomplete. And there will be anxiety. There will be suspense. There will be times when something feels like there's some dis-ease. Trust that that is a growing edge. Trust that that means that something new is about to be birthed, and not that something is wrong or needs to be pushed back against. So thank you all for your time. We're going to do some great work together. You all are going to dream up some big and wonderful things, and God is at work amongst you. Thank you.